Jumping back into the action, Mulder and Scully take a case to investigate a group of scientists studying the inside of a volcano. The scene they fall into is one of paranoia, confusion, and murder.
On top of that, the discovery of a silicone-based life form has everyone searching for answers before time runs out.
This is not happening.
Daniel always had a flair for self-dramatization.
I'd always heard that he was brilliant.
And brilliant doesn't go quite far enough. Daniel occupies that rare place among scientists where dreams, ambition, and great luck converge.
You think his luck just ran out?
Well, the team of scientists you just saw sent a distress signal yesterday after failing to make a scheduled status report. And they haven't responded to any of our calls. But by using remote telemetry, we were able to activate Firewalker's camera. This is what we found. You're looking at the floor of the volcano. But this is the last thing we expected to discover. The dead man is Phil Erickson, chief seismologist. Now, look at this.
Whoa. What the hell is that?
We don't know. Whatever it was disabled the camera. The temperature readings are upwards of 130 degrees at this depth.
Welcome back to the little show that could, everybody. You are listening to This Is Not Happening, another X-Files podcast with me, Andrew, and as always, Mike. Say hello to the nice people, Mike.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening or morning. They could be
morning.
listening to this in the morning.
Or afternoon, whenever you are listening.
Wherever and whenever you're listening, good to hear us.
I wonder when the average listening time is for our listeners.
That's a great question. There might be statistics available, like analytics or something.
Yeah, I could check out.
You could delve deeply into the data, big data, for each of our 22 listeners.
This week is about diving deep.
It is.
Digging deeper and deeper.
Digging deeply, walking into the fire.
Into the fire.
This is episode 9 of season 2, Firewalker. Originally aired in November of 94. Written by Howard Gordon. This is his second big due after Sleepless, I believe. He didn't write.
Yeah, this is his first after Sleepless, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think that is true, and I'm going to stake my reputation on it.
This is his Mr. Number 11.
Yeah.
Mr. Dial It Up to 11.
Yes, and it does come through in this episode. Directed by David Nutter, so at least we've got somebody who knows what to do with the script. It looks very good. There is no question. Worth noting, David Nutter directed Ice, and the two episodes share some DNA. They are kind of what I'm calling haunted house episodes. Their protagonists are trapped in the house, and they have to solve the mystery before they can leave, and that is kind of what's happening here. Although Gordon wasn't involved in Ice. That was Morgan and Wong who wrote that one. But definitely I think Fox said, hey, let's do another Ice. Darkness Falls. Those were both great. Let's do another one.
Yep. And that's good by me. That formula works for me, as their fans know.
Whether it works in this episode, we will find out.
We will discuss.
We will definitely discuss. I would just like to delve a bit into the rip from the headline element of this episode.
Yeah.
The Firewalker robot is based on an actual robot called Dante. In January of 93, NASA and Carnegie Mellon had this experimental robot that was tasked with descending into Mount Erebus in the Antarctic. This is a sort of prototype lunar walker, and they figured that the environment, this hostile environment of Antarctica, and the fact that the time delay between the lab at Carnegie Mellon or maybe it wasn't Carnegie Mellon. Anyway, wherever they were in the lab for, and the Antarctic was 2.5 seconds. So they're like, that's kind of the transit time it would be to the moon. So this is very good practical training. Unfortunately, it never actually amounted to anything because they scrubbed the mission about 2 days in. They figured out the fiber optic cable it might break, and if it did, then the whole thing would be a wash. But it was a proof of concept. It launched robots into the field of space exploration, and I have a cousin who was one of the project heads on the mission. Yeah.
That's pretty fucking cool.
It was pretty damn cool at the time, I must say. So
was your cousin a consultant on this episode?
no, he was not. Because the episode's, done a year after that whole thing was done. And of course, they've moved on.
What
but
a
the
missed
prop that they
opportunity.
use, it looks pretty close. Although my understanding is the thing moved like very slowly.
Yeah.
It was, you moved one of its 6 legs at a time, and then it planted it down and then moved on. So nothing about it was fast, which was not cool. But, the trendsetter is pretty cool to imagine that this is, what sent the Mars rover to Mars, and was it the Opportunity flyer that's still operating now? This is kind of the genesis of those machines.
I don't recall the name of what's out there right now, but
well, then I am totally right, and you can't say
you might be. I apologize. I don't remember the name of what's going on right now, but yeah, they've definitely improved on the mobility. And
they can get around now, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
I've actually logged into that camera a few times on Mars. That was kind of cool.
It is cool. Yeah.
That
Well,
360.
with that little bit of back history, shall we descend into the bowels of this episode?
Let us walk into the fire.
Hand in hand, skipping, you and I. Here we go. We open at the California Institute of Technology, which I don't think exists, the Volcano Observatory in Pasadena, 2:45 a.m. 2 technicians, Pierce and Vosberg, are walking down a hallway, concerned they haven't heard from a research team. All audiovisual signals are down. Pierce is about to dismiss it as a technical problem when Vosberg hands him a note received from a tracking station in Oregon, which says, "Emergency transmission. Cascade Volcano Research Team request immediate airlift." Nothing about that sounds good.
Nothing is good about this.
Yeah. The two head into the data transmission room where they have connected to the data feed of Firewalker, which we will learn is a very special robot. The robot can't be controlled by them. It's been disabled at the source, but they can look through its video camera. And with some tense Mark Snow music in the background, they zoom in and find the body of a man who Pierce identifies as Erickson. As they take in the ghastly sight, a shadow crosses the video feed, which startles them. Vosberg is about to dismiss it as a ghost signal when the camera is struck by an unseen assailant. As they watch, the camera is again struck and again until there is nothing but static. And we fade into the credits. Mike, what did you think of this opening?
Oh, man. I think it's got the makings of a very interesting episode. This is, apparently a robot that's down in a very hot location where apparently nothing should be living. Mm-hmm. So it sounds cool.
Yep.
So I'm on board with the opening.
Well, I do like the idea that this is, something mysterious that's waylaid the robot and what's happened to Erickson. Yeah, it's got all the standard bumps that get us into the episode. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, we come back from the credits to a television interview of Daniel Trepkos, which starts us off with some exposition. Firewalker is a robot which can descend into a volcano and gather samples from the floor. Trepkos, played by a very young Bradley Whitford. You'll see him in The West Wing.
West Wing. And all I can think of when I see him is Adam Sandler yelling, "Eric!" from Billy Madison.
Yeah.
And his little snarky laugh.
He certainly plays the driven scientist role to the hilt here. Even in this interview, it's like he's kind of an ass, right?
His this is more important than our exploration of space is like, okay, dude.
Sure thing, pal.
Sure.
That's bold. Even Mulder calls him out on it. But,
yeah.
He expounds how these aren't just samples, but they're peering into the fire where it all began. A human endeavor, more important even than man's exploration of space. Sure.
Too much sauce there, buddy.
Well, this is volume 211. This is Howard Gordon for you.
Yep.
Pierce, a technician from our opening, has brought the tape for Mulder and Scully to review. And one would imagine enlist the help of the FBI in determining what happened in this volcano. He relates that the team of scientists in the video sent a distress signal yesterday after failing to make a scheduled status report. He then shows them the footage we saw from the volcano floor, which startles Mulder. We learn that the temperature at this depth is around 130 degrees, I'm assuming Fahrenheit, which for everyone who doesn't go imperial translates to around 54 degrees centigrade.
This is America, Andrew. So
check your analytics. I'm willing to bet we got listeners outside of the US of A.
No,
No,
this show is for America. So it's Fahrenheit, God damn it.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, like, 54 is hot. I mean, that's hot,
for sure.
But it's not burst into flames hot, which is going to explain why, what there are going to be people down there that are relatively okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like today here where I live, it's 34 degrees. So like add 20, I suppose, and it's pretty poachy.
Pretty hot.
Pierce goes on to explain how Trepkos was increasingly volatile, almost coming to blows 6 weeks ago, and then Pierce leaves the project. Trepkos is slipping into madness, and Mulder implies that maybe Trepkos is responsible for what we've seen. Anyway, Pierce needs their help. There are 20 million taxpayer dollars on the line, and he's afraid to go through proper channels. To which Mulder says, well, we're not exactly proper channels. We have a brief exchange between Scully and Mulder. He suggests that maybe she should sit this one out, but she insists she wants to work. She's lost too much time already. Ooh, yes.
Yeah. She's determined to jump back into work, and he's concerned about his partner's safety.
Yeah.
And I would imagine being in this kind of situation where your partner's just come back out of a coma after almost dying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you wouldn't get over it too quickly, but Scully's ready. She can't afford. Yeah.
Yeah. She needs to make the mortgage payments on her house, though, so she really can't go on.
I've already used up all my sick time.
My apartment needs a new window.
You better believe the FBI charged her sick time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, her career trajectory does not mean she gets freebies, yeah.
Yeah, just because you got kidnapped by a mental patient does not mean you get off easy.
You brought that on yourself, basically.
Yeah.
Cut to the pair taking a helicopter into the volcano site, with northern BC sitting in nicely for Bend, Oregon, where there is no Mount Avalon, but it makes for a nice little bit of creative license. Touring the site, Pierce sees that a satellite dish has fallen down and wants to survey the damage. Scully is more concerned with finding survivors, but Pierce decides he wants to do a quick survey. He says he'll catch up with them in a few minutes, which is horror movie speak for this may be the last time we'll see each other. Goodbye.
Yeah. Before we blow by it, I just want to give Mark Snow a shout out here.
Oh, this good
is unreal how good this little transition piece is. And you will never see anything quite like this again in the show, which is unfortunate because he knocks it out of the fucking park.
Well, I really like his music beats inside when Mulder and Scully are looking around. You've got there's a echoey tonality in there.
There's a hint of ice in that musical composition there, but yeah, when the helicopter's circling and oh my god, the usage of synthesizer in this way is not common for the show, so it's just really good.
Yeah, Mulder and Scully go inside. They wander through the installation with their flashlights as there is no power. It's a refreshing difference from Little Green Men, where it's like, actually, wait, the power doesn't work. But that'll change as it happens. They discover smashed equipment, a lab in disarray. Mark Snow's spooky soundtrack sets the scene as they walk from room to room, evoking the feeling of the movie Alien. Meanwhile, we see a man regarding them as they tour the carnage, seemingly armed with a climbing axe. He keeps himself hidden as Mulder passes by a door marked Sample Analysis, Avoid Contamination. Suddenly, the man leaps from his hiding place to attack Mulder with his axe. Scully rushes to help, gun drawn, while Mulder quickly overcomes the man. This is Jason Ludwig, the robotics engineer on the team, who attacked Mulder because he thought he was him, Daniel Trepkos. I don't know. What do you think that maybe this guy had more of a shot and Mulder should have? Would it be more dramatic if they had a bit more of a fighty fight?
Yeah, that, and I think the explanation that he thought he was Trepkos is obvious malarkey. So it's intriguing on that level where he's watching for a little bit of a beat before he attacks, so he should know. And as the audience, we're like, I don't think you're telling the truth.
Well, Mulder thinks the exact same thing in a few minutes, so it's not... it is certainly a point worth discussing, but yeah, there's definitely something up with this Ludwig character. Now, have we seen him before again? Like, that character actor I have seen in other...
No, he is in a lot of shit.
Yeah.
He is one of the victims in Seven. He is forced to kill someone. He is I believe, the helicopter pilot in Saving Private Ryan who crashes. And then he has a role in Alien Resurrection. Great actor here.
Yeah.
This is actually this cast, the supporting cast, is pretty much full of famous people. Shawnee Smith.
I was about to say, I have great things to say about Shawnee Smith.
Oh, yeah. She, from here, she goes on to shows like Becker with Ted Danson. That was on for 6 years. And then she, of course, as everyone likely knows, is one of the main characters in Saw, that movie series. So, and
all of its sequels,
Yeah. Jesus.
Well, let's continue on. Let's continue to descend with Firewalker. The trio walk through the installation, with Ludwig telling us about Trepkos, a visionary, but apparently a manic-depressive visionary. Ludwig turns the power back on, and he tells the other survivors of the team, Peter Tanaka and Jesse O'Neill, that the cavalry has arrived. We now have most of our cast of characters in this haunted house. Tanaka looks in ill health. He's coughing up a lung. Ludwig reveals that after the robot's descent, Trepkos flipped out. O'Neill tells us that Daniel has bipolar disorder, but when he's on his meds, he's fine. Trepkos is O'Neill's thesis advisor, asking her to accompany him on the trip. Mulder finds Trepkos' notes, but O'Neill says that the first thing Trepkos did after he flipped out was to destroy his own work. And we end our scene with a close-up on the notes that Mulder has in his hands. The words, "a new life form," are underlined twice, and we linger for a little while on that. Meanwhile, outside, Pierce is hiking through the old-growth forest. It is definitely not British Columbia. Noises in the forest cause him to call out if anyone's there, but there's no response, and he walks on. Must have been nothing. Sure, he'll be fine, Mike.
Yeah, he'll be fine. I don't have any concerns about his safety.
He obviously has not watched any horror movies because you just don't go off on your own. It's a rule.
No. I do want to say real quick, Tanaka, we will see him again in Synchrony.
Episodes,
At least Synchrony.
And another character actor you've seen in other shows, movies and such. Mulder and Scully have a little confab. Mulder thinks the behavior of the trio, Ludwig, O'Neill, and Tanaka, is odd, paranoid. Scully thinks this makes sense as they've gone through some trauma and have been isolated for almost a year. But Mulder thinks there's something more. Ludwig's attack doesn't make sense to him. He knew Mulder wasn't Trepkos. They go to ask Pierce's opinion, which of course is the cue for Pierce to die. We cut back to Pierce, who has found one of his pieces of equipment and he's taking some notes, when he's attacked from behind and strangled to death by Daniel Trepkos.
Yeah, he chokes the shit out of him.
Quick. Complete with the old neck break. Trepkos looks like he's walked out of a war film with a heavy burn on his face and a white bandana. As he finishes off Pierce, he says ominously, "No one can leave."
We'll get into it by the end of the episode, but stuff like this makes me question whether or not the episode should have ended the way it ended.
It's a weird ending. I'll just put that out there right now. It's a strange choice. But we will obviously get to that. We cut to commercial, and when we come back, our survivors are looking for Pierce, and they find him dead and bring him back to the lab. It looks like they're getting ready to go, as Scully tells Mulder he can radio the helicopter, but Mulder suggests they can't leave yet. Scully wants to return with a larger party to apprehend Trepkos, like the smart plan. But Mulder wants to stay to follow up on what Trepkos has written about a new life form, a silicon-based life form. We now get some classic Mulder and Scully, some good back and forth between the agents about the possibility of the new life form, which Scully dismisses and Mulder is obviously quite excited about.
Oh, of course.
Scully is not convinced and rightfully suggests that from a strictly medical perspective, they have to get the survivors out of there. So she's not wrong, right?
She's really just being a wet blanket on the adventure. She's not enjoying the moment. All right.
Don't you see what we have here with the opportunity? To discover a new life form?
We could be millionaires with this discovery.
Yeah.
She's focused on safety.
Well, there's a slight disconnect between what Mulder says about the survivors, saying, isn't it weird that they're a little bit paranoid and, he tried to kill me and such. But I mean, I think he realizes that there is a greater mystery at play here. And if they leave now, they're kind of taking the pieces off the board.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also quite right to stay because obviously there will be a turn of events, which makes it worth their while.
Things are in motion.
Later, Scully visits Jessie O'Neill. She is in a very bad way, and Scully wants to figure out what happened. Jessie repeats what we've learned, but she elaborates a bit about Trepkos after the descent of Firewalker, that he went into seclusion for 3 days, and further, that he stopped taking his bipolar meds because they were polluting his brain, and that she was polluting his body. There's a real nice moment there where that's just all she says, and we now know everything we need to know about their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives us an insight into the changes that are happening with Trepkos, and it paints him in a light that's obviously, by not taking his meds, people are now concerned about his mental state. And his partners here are all casting him as the bad guy, which, okay. And now he's saying, oh, now you're polluting my body. Our relationship's weird. So now there's such a weird change in dynamic as to who Trepkos is, I guess. He's being very much painted as the bad guy. And
it's classic X-Files, though, right? To spend much of the episode to paint the character as the antagonist, and then later on to do a flipsy and make him the unlikely protagonist, or at least, he's complicated.
He's a complicated fellow.
So
put that on his dating resume.
Yeah, exactly. Shawnee Smith here giving a great performance as O'Neill. Like, she's losing it by degrees. Like, it's I think it's really interesting as a performance note. She's pretty been there good for a year losing it, right?
Yeah.
And then being exposed to that thing and now having the parasite inside her, like, there's a whole other level of what that's doing to her as a person. So it's a complicated character to play, and it's really interesting to see it.
Yeah, I think she handles this pretty well. And I would say in general, Shawnee Smith, in some of the other things I've seen her in, she's very good at playing frightened characters. She has this method about her that it makes you really question what's going on inside her head and feeling for her character. So she does do a really good job here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we cut to Mulder listening to Trepkos' notes on tape. It's a compelling monologue, which, if you squint just right, you can see a lot of Mulder in Trepkos. His intense desire to find the truth, perhaps eclipsing the truth itself. I kind of like how they've cast that. Like, this is like meeting like, I think. Although Trepkos is definitely off his meds and off a deep end that I don't think we'll ever see Mulder. No, that's not true. We see insane Mulder. Not for a while, but...
Does it beg the question, should Mulder be on meds?
There's definitely a diagnosis to be made here. The tape ends, and suddenly there is a tremor in the earth. Mulder goes to talk to Ludwig and Tanaka. Tanaka reveals there's been a lot of seismic activity lately, which is of no importance to the plot whatsoever.
None.
Ludwig laments that if Trepkos hadn't destroyed all their equipment, they might have actually learned something from this. Tanaka looks distinctly unwell, and despite Mulder suggesting that Scully could take a look at him, Tanaka violently refuses, pushing Mulder away, but then convulses and falls to the floor. Mulder runs off to retrieve Scully. She has a look at Tanaka, and we now have a full-blown medical emergency. They ready a stretcher to get Tanaka out of there. Scully's on the blower to their search and rescue team to get the helicopter to fly in. Mulder and Ludwig put Tanaka on the stretcher and begin to ferry him to the helipad. As they're going, Mulder notices a bulge in Tanaka's throat as Tanaka struggles to breathe. As they get outside, Tanaka hurls himself from the stretcher, runs from the pair into the night forest. Ludwig and Mulder give chase. We have a series of shots of the chase until Tanaka falls down a hill and into a gully. Mulder shines his light on him, and as he enters a series of final convulsions, and with Ludwig desperate to save his friend, Mulder restrains him. There's a loud popping noise and a spray of powder, and a plant-like spike pushes out of Tanaka's throat. Tanaka falls dead to an astonished Mulder. Heart pounding.
It is a series of events that just escalates really quickly.
That was a long paragraph I just read through there.
The shift from Tanaka doesn't look good to Tanaka being dead is staggering. There's a lot that happens, and that throat bulge thing, I want to draw attention to this because this is somewhat a real thing. Not obviously not in humans, but
please continue.
I was watching Planet Earth, that Discovery series a long time ago, like 13, 14 years ago. And this fungus attacks ants. And I'm looking it up now, but it's Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. Okay. And this fungus grows within the ants, and it actually emerges from them like this in a very similar fashion. It like turns them into these weird zombies. And so when I put that together with this, I was like, that's actually kind of interesting. I wonder if that is indeed the
inspiration.
Yeah.
At some point, I want us to have a discussion about the pathology of this parasite.
Yeah.
Like what it is actually doing to the trio of survivors here. But before we do that, we have to now relate the delightful moniker that the internet has given this astonishing new silicon-based life form. It's affectionately known as the throat dick.
Throat dick?
An image you really can't unsee.
Trademark LSG Media.
Yeah, exactly. After the commercial, Tanaka's body is safely stowed away in a glass perspex box, and Scully is looking at a sample in a microscope, describing what she's seeing. You can tell Mulder's pretty hard up for her to say that he's right about this silicon-based life form thing. She's non-committal, saying the best she can tell is it's some kind of fungus. But they did find sand in Tanaka's lungs, silicon dioxide, the waste product of a silicon-based life form. Mulder relates that Daniel discovered the spore samples in what Firewalker brought up from its descent, but O'Neill is incredulous. Daniel would have told them. Mulder thinks that this new discovery broke Trepkos. Either way, Scully thinks it might account for Trepkos' instability, as fungi can contain alkaloids that can affect the nervous system. Now, Ludwig is naturally concerned about himself and O'Neill, and this prompts the point about spreading a contagion, and that until they can figure out if there's a risk of transmitting a pathogen, they are not going home, which O'Neill does not take at all well.
No.
Another big, intense scene, but a good one.
Yeah, and you can see that dial in her brain as well, O'Neill.
Yeah.
Just ticking further into paranoia and fear.
I feel like she could probably benefit from Trepkos' meds,
Just take them just in case.
Journey. Mulder radios in to search and rescue about their quarantine, and there's a delightfully awkward moment where he's asked about the nature of what the hazard is. It's a biological agent of unknown origin. That's about as circumspect as Mulder is able to be.
I like that the rescue team is actually able to communicate with them. Like they're able to talk without static, without, oh my God, did the message get through?
Yeah,
it's just
storms rolling in.
Yeah, it's a welcome change for an episode like this.
Well, if they did it the other way, if they made it that they couldn't, the search and rescue team couldn't get to them, then it would be ice all over again.
Exactly.
So I think they've written it this way. So it's like, no, you can get rescued anytime you want.
Yeah.
You're 7 minutes away by helicopter, but they choose not to, which is the obvious difference from ice.
Right.
Well, Mulder wants to find Trepkos and find out what he knows because he's the guy who was there. He's done all this stuff, and I think it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Scully expresses her concern that Trepkos is dangerous. He's killed 2 people.
I think we can trust him. I mean, if we just offer him to sit down with tea, talk about it.
Well, Mulder wants to do this alone. He's concerned about Scully after her recent abduction, but she wants to move past this. Meanwhile, Ludwig overhears their conversation and departs. Mulder skillfully finds a way to get his way. Scully's got to finish the autopsy on Tanaka, after all, so they all don't end up on that slab. And he gives her a reassuring squeeze of her shoulder, because Mulder has no boundaries.
At least he's not fingering her necklace again.
That's true. She doesn't seem to have it in this episode.
Although it is more acceptable now because they've got a relationship. You know, a friendship. You know, they've been with each other over a year now. You know, it's not the third episode. Where
it's true. The third episode was the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, she is wearing her necklace. Or at least she's got a chain around her neck. We're assuming it's the crucifix.
Most likely.
Time passes. We see Ludwig conspiring with O'Neill. He's saying things like, okay, you're going to do it like we discussed. And before we move on, I think this is an appropriate place to have our little sidebar discussion on what the alien parasite, the silicone-based life form, actually is doing at this point. Because I don't understand this little conspiracy. Do you have any particular insight on what might be transpiring here?
I don't. The only thing I can think of is, I don't want to say it's making them crazy, but the only thing I can think of is that the fungus or parasite is just looking to propagate. So by having other organisms around when it emerges, it therefore extends its species, I guess. I don't think there's anything else to be read into it, unfortunately. It's not really given the motive that other Monster of the Weeks are. But
it's chillingly opaque is what I would say. Like this to the point where I don't understand what's going on here. The only thing I could draw is that he is convincing O'Neill to cuff herself to Scully when the time comes. That's the only thing that I could see as like the plan that she will enact. I
just don't get it though, because Tanaka refused help, right? So that means he would have to understand what's happening and choose not to have medical attention from Scully for some weird reason. I don't.
Well, I look at that as a heroic gesture, that he is specifically trying to get away from people when he's going to have his throat dick explosion moment, because he knows the consequence of that.
And that very well could be. I took it as more confusion as to what's going on here, because obviously the goal is to get rescued and be near people, but I can't tell, and this is a failing of either myself or the episode, but I can't tell if they're zombies and they're really trying to hurt people and just painting Trepkos as the bad guy because he's not infected and they all are. Yeah. I can't tell. It's much more obtuse than, say, Ice. So,
well, this is classic Howard Gordon, right? He's writing for making the episode dramatic rather than making the episode make sense. Because if the concern is, you know, they're zombies and they need to propagate the species of the silicon-based life form, why attack and try and kill Mulder?
Exactly. It's very confusing.
Hey, you're here, great.
Yeah, fantastic. Why not try to get near these people as much as possible and be friendly towards them and make it so it's not awkward. And
I don't know. Exactly. So I suspect the best we're going to get here is that there is some kind of conflict. Like they do retain some agency. They do retain their inner nature. You know, Tanaka obviously does because he's resistant to trying to be helped because he knows the consequences. But maybe with Ludwig and O'Neill, they are a bit more suborned by the alien life form and
internal conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
Fighting
but
for control.
None of that is really well showcased.
Exactly.
So it's up to us to intuit.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
So you're finally going to go after Trepkos? Well, I'll tell you one thing. You won't find him with those. And you won't find him with any map either.
Well, how will I find him?
You won't. Not without a guide.
A guide?
Yeah, a guide. Look, I've been up here for almost a year. I spent months in those caves. charting every fissure, every crevice, so Firewalker wouldn't trip. If Trepkos is there, I can find him.
Well, why are you so eager to help me find him?
Oh, I'm not eager. I just don't feel like waiting around for Trepkos to do to me what he did to Pierce and Erickson. Plus, you've got the gun. You're the only one who can get us out of this place.
There we go. He's in.
He's in.
For better or for worse, and in 30 seconds, it's going to be for worse.
It's going to be for worse.
Yeah. We fade to the steam caves, where it does not appear to be 130 degrees.
No.
Mulder and Ludwig walk around in their normal clothes.
In layers.
In
long
layers,
sleeve
yeah.
layers. Not their underwear and no shirt.
No,
But
no.
shirt, jacket, light jacket.
Not even sweating. You
No.
know, this would be a steam bath is what it would be.
Yeah.
But
inconsistent.
maybe the temperature dropped.
I'm sure it did.
I'm sure
It is getting
all we
close
need
to
is
nighttime.
all we need is a line from Ludwig saying, "Now is the time to go because it's cooler now."
Mm-hmm.
Don't explain how.
Just say it.
Yeah. Well, they walk through the caves until suddenly a flare blasts through the air and strikes Ludwig in the back, dropping him to the ground. Mulder rushes to his aid and becomes aware of Trepkos coming up from another crevice, reloading his flare gun and pointing it ominously at Mulder. Is this the end of Agent Mulder?
This is the end of the show.
I know. Crazy.
Flares
They
don't
chose to
do
go-
this.
No.
I can't get past this one. I'm sorry.
It's a bit of
It's
a failing.
way too convenient to have a flare kill him by hitting him in the back. And yeah.
Well, maybe it just stunned him. And the pouring gas on him and lighting him on fire is what did it.
No, because Mulder says he's already dead.
Yeah, he does.
It's too much
some
for
high
me.
quality bullshit.
Hollywood.
Yeah, no, a flare would hurt real bad. It might light your clothes on fire,
would not be
especially in a
pleasant,
130 degree
for sure.
cave. Yeah, but no, it doesn't have the velocity to actually punch into you.
Well, this thing like burrows into him. I'm like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah, it's pretty hard.
Oh man. But yeah, gets us to
Listen,
Trepkos, and that's all that matters.
In Howard Gordon's world, flare guns are deadly.
This is the problem. Not just that it killed him, right? But that he threatens Mulder to the point he relinquishes his weapon, his gun. It's like, Mulder, you're not this stupid. You have to. So now
Mulder has just seen what this flare gun did
the
to
X-Files,
Ludwig. He's not going to take that chance.
The X-Files universe is now canonically flares kill people and can be used as actual guns. I don't know.
Well, the other question is, what on earth is Trepkos doing with a flare gun in
underneath the
volcano? Yeah, like I don't see this on your list of emergency supplies when you're going into volcano territory.
He's threatening to set off the volcano eruption by shooting it further into the crevice.
You won't want to shoot me. If I accidentally shoot this flare gun, I might set off the whole
He's
volcano.
playing mad scientist. If he doesn't get $100 million, he will set off the volcano.
You know what would have been better? If he just had a gun.
Exactly. I'm like, they could have done anything to get him a gun, and I would have been 100 times more receptive to this right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see them having guns. They're in, a remote area.
Some sort of defense. I could buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe a rifle or something.
Yeah. At which point Mulder would probably be a bit more obvious to give up his weapon.
Yes.
But have we gone on about the flare gun enough?
I'm sorry. We can continue.
Okay, we're good. After the commercial, Trepkos takes Mulder's gun because he's threatening him with a deadly flare gun. He pours gas over Ludwig's body. A confused Mulder asks Trepkos why he's doing this. He's already dead. Trepkos answers, "It's not him I'm trying to kill." We see Ludwig's head with a mass distending his throat, about to pop. Trepkos drops a flare on Ludwig's body, which goes up in flames. So, very convenient, that Ludwig was suddenly about to pop his throat dick, because he had zero symptoms this entire time.
Yeah, he seemed the most okay of all of them, aside from plotting. But he hasn't been stealing away to privacy and looking like on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
Like
It hasn't been
Jesse.
coughing like Tanaka was.
Yeah.
It's a very capricious set of symptoms that these creatures produce.
You could be fine, or you could be in a deep, deep sweat, vomiting.
Yeah. You never know.
Never know.
All right. So our image, this is a nice cut. We're lingering on the burning body of Ludwig. And then we crossfade to a single flame of a Bunsen burner, heating up a vial of red liquid. Nice little fire-to-fire transition. Good job, Mr. Nutter. And Scully's reviewing her research, and she's revealing her findings to a tape recorder. She's unable to reproduce the spores outside the body, suggesting that the spores are harmless unless they're immediately ingested after a throat-dicking incident. Have we taken that term far enough yet? I don't know. Are we about to lose an audience?
No.
Can I say that word?
Dick?
Throat dick, apparently.
I don't care. I think it's
right,
fantastic. I mean, it is. But just the way you said throat dicking gave it a different life.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, the point is that we have now sort of put a parentheses on the conceit that they're going to be fine, that Tanaka's little explosion wouldn't have had an issue. You know, there's no issue. There's nothing lingering in the air. If it lingers in the air, it doesn't have any effect. You have to be near it when it explodes to have any effect on you. So That is what we now know. So she goes to share the good news with O'Neill, knocking at the door. It takes a while for O'Neill to answer. She's probably crying little eyes out. So Scully's like, no, it's okay. We're going to be okay. I just thought you want to know. But inside, we see O'Neill at her mirror. And we're seeing that her throat is bulging. She is not going to be okay.
Bum, bum, bum. I can't imagine what this has to feel like, right?
Oh, ridiculously bad, yeah.
I would just jam a knife into my skull at this point and be like, I'm not doing this.
It's very interesting. And I mean, this is the body horror of Alien.
Yeah.
Aliens. More aliens, I suppose, than Alien, because in Alien, it was this whole grappling with the idea of what's
happening,
being infected with that organism actually meant. But
yeah.
In Alien, there is this knowledge that if you get taken, this is what's going to happen to you. So yeah, they actually sort of tumbled with that concept. Here, not so much, and they probably could have.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you had another character who just offed themselves in the middle of the night and be like, why did they do that? Then it would have been an interesting layer.
That would have been different, yeah.
Back in the crevice, Mulder presses Trepkos for more information about what went wrong. Trepkos relates the truth of the elephant.
Dial it up to 11.
Yeah, exactly. As parables go, I mean, I suppose he's off his meds. He can be poetic if he wants, but
this character
it doesn't really lend anything. Yeah.
Firewalker carried something back to the surface.
Firewalker brought up an elephant. The truth is an elephant described by 3 blind men. First man touches the tail and says it's a rope. Second man feels the rough leg, says it's a tree. Third man feels the trunk, says it's a snake.
What about you? What do you say it is?
I say the earth holds some truths best left buried.
Like the spore?
The truth. You can see Mulder's frustration as he starts out. Jesus Christ.
Just tell me what happened. Yeah.
What do you think it is? God damn it.
Yeah. He's basically saying the truth depends on the perspective of the viewer, but ultimately Trepkos wants to keep this new life form here, that it shouldn't leave the crevice. Based on what we've seen of the throat dick, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
But, trim it up, Trepkos. Just tell us what you feel. Don't get all poetic.
No, get poetic. Like, this is Bradley Whitford. He can do a monologue.
I love Bradley Whitford.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the character
is written a little annoying.
Trepkos presses Mulder on his intentions, that Mulder can petition heaven and get some penetrating answer. It's a nice bit of poetic writing. Trepkos concludes, if you found that answer, what would you do with it? Mulder ignores it, just wants to know what happened. He wants to find the truth. Trepkos reveals that Erickson released the spore by pulverizing some rock, that he was the one that was first infected. Trepkos had secluded himself for 3 days, hearing their screams as Erickson was the first victim, and that the trio of Tanaka, Ludwig, and O'Neill were gathered around him. Mulder puts the pieces together that O'Neill is also infected and that Scully is in danger. Trepkos won't let him leave, points that gun at him. He won't let any of them leave. Mulder says, "You're going to have to shoot, because I'm walking out of here." So Trepkos shoots him with a flare gun. Mulder dies.
Oh, how many times?
No, he's an inconsistent character. We cut back to Scully, continuing her research when the power goes out. Scully grabs her flashlight to look around, her flashlight saber cutting through the darkness of the lab. She arrives at the circuit box and starts flicking breaker switches to get the power back, but it doesn't work. She closes the panel and Jesse is there, looking very sweaty and pasty, and, it's a nice little jump scare. Completely ignoring the obvious, Scully asks, "What's wrong?"
Yeah.
And then
her eyes are telling you everything.
Yeah.
just run, don't ask.
I wish that sequence went on for like 10 seconds. Jesse, are you okay?
Are you all right?
Are you feeling
a little glassy eyed
take
there?
The temperature? What's that with your throat, Jesse? Jesse shows off the mass in her throat, grabbing Scully's hand and cuffing themselves together. Scully has a horrific realization that a throat dick is imminent.
No.
We cut to Mulder, running back to the lab through the forest, then back to Scully, who has dragged a gagging O'Neill to another part of the lab. Scully grabs a hammer. She begins to whack at the chain of the handcuffs, but makes pathetic progress. The mass in O'Neill's throat extends ominously, and Scully gives up on the hammer, taking O'Neill in a fireman's carry to the isolation booth and dropping her inside, closing the door with a vacuum sealing whoomp. We get a second's reprieve as Scully catches her breath, only for O'Neill to leap up and hammer at the glass wall, her eyes a mass of terror as her throat swells horrifically. Finally, O'Neill falls back and there's an explosion of powder. Looking in, Scully sees O'Neill has sprouted a throat dick. But the vacuum seal of the booth seems to have saved her from being infected. However, she's handcuffed to a corpse.
I'm actually a fan of the effects in this episode.
This scene is amazing.
Yeah, I love she just kind of falls out of frame and the sand just expels towards the window. It looks really cool. I think it's actually pretty well done in the entire episode, but it's terrifying.
Oh, God, yeah. You never see the thing actually blast out of somebody's neck. It's always done off camera in a really subtle way, because that would probably be really hard to do.
Yeah.
And frankly, you don't need to see it. It's pretty horrifying. Like your imagination fills in the gaps.
Yeah, and we saw it grow out of Tanaka, so we know what's happening. We don't necessarily need to see it, and it's done in a classy way.
Exactly. Yeah. Mulder finally arrives, and they share about a tenderer moment as the X-Files can manage, with Mulder caressing Scully's cheek as she's handcuffed to a corpse with a protruding throat dick. Mulder relates what Trepkos told him about the three of them being exposed. Trepkos arrives to look mournfully at O'Neill, repeating what she had told Scully, that this trip would change her life. Unanticipated consequences.
It sounds like Mulder at the end of Darkness Falls. I told her it'd be a nice trip to the forest.
Well, this is just it, right? They're boring for their own playbook. That's all right. I mean, this is Bradley Whitford. He can channel it pretty well here. With Trepkos in the room, Mulder calls for search and rescue, letting them know that there are 2 survivors. Scully is unsure of Mulder's intentions, but all we get from him is that it's all over. He won't talk. Which strikes me as supremely out of character for Mulder. It's like he knows the arc of this remaining episode, and he's condemning Trepkos to die. And I'm also surprised that Scully seemingly goes along with all this.
Part of me understands what you're saying. The other part of me is no one's going to let Trepkos, he's going to serve a life in prison, right? No one's going to give him a pass on this. So if they take him back to civilization, what is it for him? I almost give it a pass simply because he is the one who's been trying to contain this thing. So what harm is he going to do by surviving, alone or whatever? I don't know that it's realistic, but
I can buy it from Mulder's perspective.
yeah.
I mean, if taking everything you're saying, I can be on board with that. What we're missing is the scene where Mulder somehow convinces Scully that this is cool, because I cannot see her being like, oh, he's just going to stay here and die. Well, okay, that's fine. He wants that, clearly, right? He's real sad right there. I mean, that tells me he doesn't deserve
Well,
to
what
live.
they don't tell you is that from this point forward, she sends him nice little care packages. She gets them delivered on a weekly basis for the next
episode.
10, 20 years.
And then he gets right. He turns his life around.
Yeah, he changes his identity and eventually lives in, Denver. Somewhere in the mountains, but with less volcanoes.
He's done with volcanoes.
He's done with volcanoes.
I would put this as a pretty major plot hole, because it's like the episode saying, we need to move along and write this guy out in a tragically heroic way. But it completely ignores the fact that they're law enforcement professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Scully is a rules follower. So I could totally see her saying, oh no, he's coming back.
The rescue team comes. Trepkos is alive. Trepkos is alive.
What about the families of the victims here? Like the ones that were killed by Trepkos, do you think they're like, oh, so he just died up there, did he?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They wrote themselves into a corner. They wanted Trepkos to be 100% a hero.
Yes. I mean, they give him his final...
They give him his...
Well,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I'll wrap it up here. So we end on a Mulder monologue with visuals of the Army biohazard crew decontaminating the station and gathering the research team's materials. Mulder describes how they are in a month-long quarantine, but they're going to be fine. All their notes have been confiscated in true X-Files fashion. They have learned there is a greater truth out there, but their evidence is taken from them. Army engineers have sealed off all access points to the volcano, and there will be no further plans to explore the hundreds of volcanically active mountains in the Cascade Range. We get a send-off for Bradley Whitford, bye-bye, as Trepkos descends into the depths of the steam cave with O'Neill's body, never to be seen again. End of episode. I got mixed feelings about this one. I know that it's a good Haunted House episode, but I don't think it's as good as Ice and Darkness Falls.
No.
I would final thoughts.
For me, it starts off okay with, again, the pre-credit sequence in the setting. Yeah. We all know this is a big one for me. The atmosphere of the episode's really cool. Big fan of the organism and the way they handle that. I think it adds a good bit of tension. And again, my correlating it to that insect fungus makes it cooler for me. I don't know whether or not it's related in any way, but it made it cooler for me. There are major problems with this episode, but I will say that to me it is a middle of the road on the positive side for me. It's not horrible. It's not great. It's good. And it's enjoyable enough, especially with the cast that they hired, to make it more interesting. And then Mark Snow's score really helps this one along. You know, it's limping along here and there. Howard Gordon's dialing it up to 11, and Whitford's amazing dialogue is a drawback for me. But, you know, I look past it. I give it more credit than it probably deserves. And I don't know why, but there are plenty of things to like. There are plenty of things to dislike about it. So I understand when people say, and I actually, when we finished recording last week, you and I started talking, and I called it the poor man's Ice. And then Josh, who we will read a comment, said the same thing. So I'm like, this is okay. We're on to something here. So I do think it shares a lot of DNA with Ice.
Oh, unquestionably.
And it's hard to avoid that kind of thing when you're dealing with these haunted house episodes. So I still enjoy it. Is it as good? No, probably not.
I think it's a decent haunted house episode. I don't think it's as good as Ice and Darkness Falls and the others that will follow. I mean, I think they've learned a bit from Ice, at least about how to treat a potential biohazard, although there's still not a mask to be seen anywhere. Come on.
This is 3.
Oh, we might be.
Come on, Mulder and Scully.
Come on. There are only a few plot holes to quibble over. I mean, the steam caves are apparently 130 degrees, but when they get down there, they're wearing multiple layers and they can sit around perfectly comfy.
And that one was hard for me, even watching this the first time. It was like, okay, no one's supposed to be able to live down there, but yet this guy's walking around and, well, certainly the corpse at the beginning of the episode wasn't a husk, a smoking husk.
Well, exactly, yeah.
But so, and then you find out Trepkos is just living down there or something. So it's like, you got to not think about strange.
That. Yeah. We even have props of heat-resistant suits in the background of several scenes, so it's not like they could have gone, and taken those, but they didn't. This is typical of Howard Gordon, turning his plot elements up to 11, or in this case, up to 130, to amp up the tension, and then conveniently forgetting about them when they are inconvenient. For me, the final sequence with O'Neill handcuffing herself to Scully is the highlight of the episode. I would argue that the entire plot is designed to lead up to this moment. And it's legitimately horrifying. We know what's going to happen to O'Neill. We know what the stakes are for Scully, and now it's a puzzle to determine how she's going to survive, which her quick thinking allows her to do. So, I mean, this sort of saves the episode for me, this little sequence. I think it's enough that I go, okay, it's worth it to get to this point. I can disregard a lot of inconvenient things because this sequence is just so good. But if I have any quibble with this, it's going to be why there seems to be this plan between Ludwig and O'Neill for her to cuff herself to Scully. Do the life forms have an alien intelligence that controls their host? In the end, it doesn't really matter, as the plot goes to great lengths to say that we will never see these particular bad guys ever again.
Yeah.
So, a solid 5 out of 10.
Yeah, about there.
Shall we read our selection of listener comments?
I'm currently perusing.
We'll sample from the 500 comments. Wow, we had such feedback today. It was so great.
We did. I appreciate it, listeners. Thank you very much for
so good.
Your comments. It's fun to read through. All right, I'm going to start with Matt Conrad. He doesn't speak up often, but I'm glad to see he did again. It's good to see him again. Matt says, I like Firewalker well enough. It's a little like when you ask your mom if you can have ice, and she says, we have ice at home. And ice at home is Firewalker. Also, I wonder if the writer was having a little bit of a dry spell, what with the rock-hard throat dicks spraying their seeds everywhere. Poor chap. Excellent.
Well, I do know that Howard Gordon's got a bit of a problem with writing because he had a hard time writing Sleepless. Yeah. So there's a decent interval between that episode and here. I guess he had time to sort of get something together. Because I think he was supposed to write.
He was on deck for 3 or
3, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. To fill that spot. But he's like, oh no. No.
I'm swamped.
I'm not going to do that again. Emily Messenger says, Firewalker, the good old throat dick episode. I like the continuity of Mulder being worried about Scully going back out in the field so soon after her return. I'm also a whore for any moment when Mulder isn't completely self-serving, so I really appreciated that little tidbit from him. Also, Rambo Bradley Whitford is hot. Yes, that is exactly how he needs to be described. Rambo Bradley Whitford. Yeah.
Yeah, he's walking off the battlefield in this episode. It's excellent.
Emily also said that we needed to make Throat Dick a drinking game as well.
We did a little bit.
Well, I certainly said it many times, but we didn't preface that it was another drinking game every time. Listen, go back.
Well, now everyone go back and count.
Yeah.
And then take as many drinks as you can.
27 times in sequence.
Josh says, I actually really enjoy Firewalker. It's not a great ep, but I always can get a rewatch. It kind of feels like a poor man's Ice with the isolation and the unseen threat coming from within. Plus, Throat Dick is an all-time gross-out effect. You've heard it from the man himself, the creator of Throat Dick.
Yep. I hope that we honored that term sufficiently. Certainly, I said it many times, many more than I thought I would ever say those words together. Well, Mike, is there anything else? Have we?
No, I think this.
Have we walked through all the fires?
We have. And again, thank you, listeners, for your comments. We appreciate it. The engagement is awesome. And
God.
I enjoy this episode, and I will eventually watch it again. Just not right now.
Just not right now.
Just not right now.
So many others to watch. Well, thanks everybody for listening to our little show, and I hope that wherever you are today, tonight, and tomorrow, you are not walking through fire.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at tinhxfilespod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming.